All right, so here we go. Chapter 13, A House Divided. This is the chapter that will involve all the information. Well, I shouldn't say all the information, but as much information that we can cover uh, leading up to the American Civil War. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. I want to start off with something known as the Texas Revolt, or as Texans refer to as, or refer to it as, the fight for Texas independence. In the state of Texas, I think it's required for you to take Texas history, maybe like at the seventh grade, and then again you might take Texas government in college. But neither here nor there. There's a sense of Texas pride and promotion for sure in the state of Texas. I'm gonna cover the Texas fight for independence in 2 slides or less. So here we go. First and foremost, when you look at this slide here, you can see the map, and you can see what is the current United States of America, and I'm going to outline it here in blue. See, there it is right there. Whoop, all that space. There's the United States of America as it stands. And then this is considered Mexico. This will be this jalapeno looking green area right here. Boom, there it is. There's Mexico. And the Mexican government is concerned because it is apparent that Americans are moving westward. They are manifesting themselves, and I'm doing the air quotes, they're manifesting themselves westward. And this seems to be an issue for the Mexican government because this area, and I'm going to use a blue marker of sorts, this area like right here is it's not as populated as they would like, as it's sparsely populated, and they feel that if Americans are moving westward into regions that are not populated richly with Mexicans, then they can make a claim to take it and keep it for themselves. So they come up with this idea, well, for Americans that are moving westward, let's give them Mexican citizenship. And if we do that, then we can say that Mexicans live here. Therefore, it still should be an area that belongs to the state of Mexico. So they're going to offer plots of land to westward moving Americans under the guise that they will eventually be Mexicans, such as Moses Austin, who will pass away and pass on his claim of land in Mexico to his son named Stephen Austin. The Mexican government will be alarmed because individuals like Stephen Austin are going to be moving into the region, but they bring a lot more people than they originally said. And on top of that, many of the people that they are bringing slaves. And the Mexican government has outlawed slavery. They begin telling these individuals, like, hey, we're letting you over here. You guys are breaking the law. You're crossing over illegally. You're not trying to learn the language or nothing. These are rapists and murderers. I apologize. No, wait a minute. Let me reframe that. I know some people use that rhetoric to describe people moving into territories that they don't like, but I'm not doing that here. What I'm saying is that the Mexican government is worried about this illegal immigration of Americans into what is considered Mexico during the 1930s up to the 1830s to about the 1860s. These individuals, specifically in a region known as Tejas, which is right here. I'm going to go ahead and try to outline it in. Let's see, what color do I got? Purple. We'll do purple. Right here. It's kind of big, but they want more control. They want more independence. They want to keep their slaves. So they say, F the Mexican government, and if they want to have beef, then they can have beef. So the Mexican government has to respond. The leader of Mexico at the time, his name is Santa Anna. He sends an army to put pressure on these radical immigrants. The Tejanos are going to respond, demanding independence. Santa Anna will storm a fort in what is currently San Antonio, Texas, known as the Alamo. He kills everybody in sight. He allows a few to escape and remind everybody that they shouldn't mess with the Mexican government. Under the leadership of an individual by the name of Sam Houston, he will lead a counter revolution after the massacre at the Alamo, and Sam Houston will ultimately defeat Santa Anna at the Battle of San Jacinto. And that's where I want us to underline um, our first item here. Please underline San Jacinto. This will be the battle at which the Texas revolutionaries will defeat the Mexican forces, and Texas will earn its independence as a nation. Um, now, we will not immediately join the United States. We will be independent for quite some time. Uh, as far as the United States was concerned, and as far as those revolutionaries and under the leadership of Sam Houston were concerned, if the United States were to accept Texas this soon, that could be an issue with Mexico at large, and then it also could raise another issue in reference to slavery, because Texas obviously, because of their transfer of slaves into that region, would want Texas to be a slave state. So we don't want to bring those issues up just yet. Now, in the election of 1844, we have various candidates running for office. We have John C. Calhoun, and he, if you recall, was the vice president to Andrew Jackson. He's a hardcore racist, and he believes that we should annex Texas, strengthen the South, divide Texas into a number of southern states, so that way we could preserve and maintain states' rights, and of course, preserve and maintain slavery. Henry Clay will run again, but will not win. Martin Van Buren will run as a Democrat. The W over here stands for Whig. And both argued that we should not annex Texas because that would provoke war, a war that's unnecessary. There's no reason for us to be at odds with Mexico at this moment. So let's just chill. And then we had a guy by the name of James K. Polk, who believes that we should re-annex, and I'm doing the quotation signals you guys can't see, but we should re-annex Texas and reoccupy all of Oregon. And I should say, from the perspective of James K. Polk, his argument is that Texas was a part of Louisiana Purchase. So we've had access to this area. We just have not laid proper claim to it. So let's get it back. Let's get Oregon. And he's definitely considered an expansionist candidate. And considering the times, considering manifest destiny, transcendentalism, the market revolution, the acquisition of more land seemed like the coolest ticket on the ballot. So oddly enough, James K. Polk becomes president of the United States. And before you know it, days later, Congress will declare Texas as a part of the United States as well. So everything that Polk wanted to do, he is going to be able to achieve. And that leads us to our next slide, Polk, the road to war. And this involves Polk's platform. Go ahead and underline Polk's platform. There are 4 items to his platform. And or I shouldn't say obviously, but it is a domestic platform. He has 4 things he wants to accomplish during his presidency. He has also argued that if he is able to accomplish these 4 items, he won't seek a second term. So what are these 4 items? He wants to reduce the tariff. He wants to settle the Oregon issue, which means purchase Oregon. He wants to re-annex Texas, which Congress did shortly after he became president. And he wants to bring California into the Union. All right, so I want to go ahead and say this right now. Polk will do all 4 of these items. And as he promised, he will not seek a second term. So, that's one interesting thing about James K. Polk, is that he's not an avarice man who seeks a great deal of power. He's comfortable with what he's got. But so let's look at the 4 items. We'll start off with reducing the tariff. That won't be terribly difficult because that's just That's a tax issue. We can handle that within 4 years. Settling the Oregon issue. We know that Oregon or that area was under the control of Great Britain. We approached Great Britain with an offer they couldn't refuse. We gave them the money, and boom, we got Oregon. Then comes the issue of reannexing Texas. I already told you guys, shortly after becoming president, Congress makes that happen. Boom, we got that done. And then last but not least, we have the issue of bringing California into the Union. Now, this is an issue because California is currently under the control of Mexico. We were able to avoid a conflict with Mexico as the United States. However, Mexico will still look at the United States and say to themselves, I don't know, there's something fishy about the United States annexing Texas not terribly too long after the so-called revolutionaries fought for their independence. It almost seemed like there was a bit of support and collusion going on, but that's all conspiracy theory talk. The bottom line is California belongs to Mexico. So the same way that we were able to acquire Oregon, the United States will send ambassadors to Mexico, offering them money, hopefully offering them something that they couldn't refuse. Oddly enough, Mexico refuses. And we think to ourselves, no. We're offering you a great deal of money. Please accept it. It makes sense. And Mexico says, no, what? You don't understand English? We're telling you no. We don't want to sell you California. So they travel back to the United States. They speak to the president, these ambassadors, and they'll let him know that, hey, Mexico isn't budging. Polk will then say, all right, well, that's cool. Send Zachary Taylor to the disputed border of Texas. The people of Texas are arguing that with their independence, they were able to secure the Texas border at the Rio Grande River. The state of Mexico is arguing, no, that's not true. They were under the impression that the state of Texas should operate at the border of the Nueces River, which is right here. Let me go ahead and use what color? I guess purple. Right here. And that this should be the border, and it should look a little something like, I'm following this red line. So better yet, just follow this red line. And that's what Mexico thought should be the state of the Texas border to that of Mexico. And so all this green area here would be considered Mexico. Texans are considering it a part of Texas. And so it's an area that's in dispute. Well, the president tells Zachary Taylor, who's a general, to go down there and figure out like what's on, who's saying what, and take your men and make sure that they're carrying weapons. Okay. So the troops head down there, and let's be honest, like if Mexico believes that that's their territory and you're bringing in a military force, and Mexico probably has military, or better yet, let's say there aren't, Mexico doesn't have any military action in that region. The fact that the United States is sending individuals in that region with weapons, that could be seen as a threat. Mexico will respond. Fire will take place. People will die. And as far as the United States is concerned, they're arguing that American blood has been shed on American soil. And that should be a justification for war. Well, where exactly did it fall, and was it a disputed area? A young man by the name of Abraham Lincoln will make the argument that we need to investigate. We're not sure if this actually occurred on American soil. As far as Polk is concerned, that's neither here nor there. We're going to war. So because of Polk's platform, so we're tying this right back into the first term that we've underlined. Or I should say this term that we're underlining here, not our first term. That Polk's platform could and should be identified as a basis for us to enter what is known as the Mexican-American War. So let's move to our next slide. And go ahead and write that out and then underline it. I'm going to type it right here. Mexican-American War. Go ahead and type that out and then underline it, if you will. It's right there for you. A majority of Americans are going to be supportive of this conflict, understandably so, because the majority of Americans are in favor of expanding their holdings in territory. Only a minority of Americans would be opposed to the conflict because they see that the expansion of America could also explain the expansion of slavery. One particular person who was a critic of the war will be Henry David Thoreau. He protested the war when tax collectors knocked on his door and said, "Hey, we're here to collect the tax." He asked, "What's the tax for?" "To support the war in Mexico." "Oh, I don't believe in the war in Mexico." "Well, it doesn't matter, sir, if you believe in the war in Mexico. We're collecting the taxes." He goes, "Well, I'm not paying it." And they said, "Well, then we'll have to put you in jail." And then Thoreau said, "Well, then I guess you got to do what you got to do." So now Thoreau's in jail. Thoreau's now in jail. And he's just, um, uh, gobsmacked at the idea that he's in jail simply because he doesn't agree with funding something that the federal government says he needs to agree with. So he begins writing his thoughts down, and he ultimately pens an essay called "On Civil Disobedience." And I want you guys to underline that. That's right here, on civil disobedience. If you don't remember, Thoreau's a transcendentalist, he's a pacifist, and his argument is that if and when you encounter a law you believe to be unjust with your moral constitution, it is your responsibility to disobey that law. But when you disobey that law, you must be nonviolent. And you must be aware that there are consequences to your disobedience. So if that implies you're going to go to jail, be ready for jail. If that implies you're going to pay a fine, be ready for that fine. If that implies that you get the death penalty, it is what it is. If you are an adherent to that logic of civil disobedience. The reason why I had you guys underline on civil disobedience is because as an American philosopher, as a transcendentalist, Henry David Thoreau will influence individuals not only in the United States, around the world, towards the notion of nonviolent direct action carried out by Mahatma Gandhi to ensure independence for his people, and carried out by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. To ensure equal opportunity and access to the African American community and other marginalized Americans in society during the civil rights movement. So that's the significance of on civil disobedience, the influence that it had and the reach it had in the moment of the Mexican War. The war will conclude with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Go ahead and underline that. The war doesn't take very long to end. It ends in 1848. And with the treaty, we will annex Texas at the Rio Grande River, where we will be able to access, not access, but acquire all of California. And then if you look at a map, there's an area between what is the rightful Louisiana Purchase of 1803 and then, of course, our acquisition of California. There's a space in between that's kind of odd, and that will be now known to be New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, and Utah, and Colorado. The United States says, "Hey, we want the rest of that area too, just to, so it's a clean expansion, if you will, and it doesn't make America look goofy. And we're willing to give you guys $15 million for that." Mexico will accept it, but at the same time, Mexico's still like dumbfounded at the idea, like, "What, man? We don't understand what's going on here. How is it that we have a war? How is it that we're losing land? How is it that we're accepting 15 million? And simply because we didn't want to sell you something, like we didn't want to give you something, so you in essence bullied and robbed us for all these items." And that's exactly how we should look at that. We definitely manifested ourselves westward, and this would be at the expense of individuals outside of American citizenship, and that would be Mexico and its citizens. This next slide is just a blanket slide to figure out how Manifest Destiny has impacted these various groups. When you look at Manifest Destiny and how it affected Native Americans, that's a question we got to consider. How Manifest Destiny has affected blacks, and what I should mean by that is slaves. That the more and more we moved westward, slavery moved westward. The more we moved westward, Native Americans had to move elsewhere by way of the Trail of Tears and the relocation of Native Americans on reservations. We can look at Manifest Destiny and its impact on Mexicans with the Mexican-American War. One thing that I have not covered as of yet would be Manifest Destiny and its impact upon Chinese individuals. As we are moving westward and we finally acquire California, there will be an influx of Chinese populating the United States, coming to the United States as many people are flooding the West Coast because of the discovery of gold in 1848. The flood of that region will take place in 1849, which is why they're referred to as the San Francisco 49ers. People from around the world will travel to the West Coast of America to pursue what they believe to be the city of Cibola, the seven cities of gold, if you will. Many people believe that the streets of America were paved with gold. China will send individuals over, and when they get here, they will be discriminated against. They will be exploited. They won't have as many opportunities as white Americans will have, and they will be forced to. Many of them will be forced to work on railroads to benefit white white corporations, white entrepreneurs, and many Chinese will die building those railroads, die at the hands of exploitation in that region. But nonetheless, they were doing so because they felt that traveling to America might give them greater opportunity. But we can see that Manifest Destiny is a powerful ideology or term in developing America. However, a lot of America's development is at the expense of these individuals. Based on that understanding, I want us to underline the gold rush of California. Before 1849, California had a non-Indian population under 15,000 individuals. Before the Mexican-American War, that is. But once gold was discovered in 1848, more and more people are flooding the region to such a degree that by 1860, that non-Indian population rose to 360,000. I mean, that is an astronomical number. They are definitely going to apply for statehood, and that will bring up the question, should it be a slave state or a free state? Now, as I've already mentioned, white miners rushing to that region will organize extra legal means to expel foreign miners, such as the Chinese. They're going to tax non-white miners extra. Only white people are going to vote in the region. So when you look at that last bullet, there are various things to consider, such as economic opportunity in regards to taxation, expel foreign miners, which is opportunity by way of organization. And then last but not least, the ability that only whites can vote. That's the exclusion of political opportunity. So we have political opportunity, economic opportunity, and social opportunity, all controlled by white America. And that's just a glimmer of the racial attitude experienced and executed during this particular era of American history. And I say this particular era as if it didn't occur in every era of American history. Victory over Mexico added more than 1 million square miles of acreage to the United States. An area that is larger than Louisiana Purchase. However, if you were to ask people, random people on the streets, hey, do you know what the Louisiana Purchase is? Some might be able to say yes. You could ask some people, hey, do you know what the Mexican Cession is? And when I say session, I'm going to type it out right here real quick for you guys. Boom. Let's see. Okay, we'll see. And the Mexican cession is that extra area that we purchased for 15 million. You know, the New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, Utah. You know, that area is known as the Mexican cession, and that area is larger in acreage than that of the Louisiana Purchase. But you know, and might I add, we also purchased uh, the Mexican cession in 1848, if you will, for 15 million, whereas we spent 15 million in 1803 to purchase Louisiana. When you look at the time difference, a million, I'm sorry, 15 million that many years later is actually less than the 15 million we spent in 1803. And again, it's more acreage. So the better deal would have been the Mexican cession. The question we have to ask ourselves is, why do we know more about the Louisiana Purchase than the Mexican cession? And the answer is the following. It's simple. The means by which we got the Louisiana Purchase was, this is America striking the perfect deal, as if we are like the greatest negotiators in the world. Whereas when you look at the Mexican cession, granted, we were able to gain more, but the means by which we gained more were shady, and you know, vicious and vile, and that's why we don't talk about it as much, despite the fact that the area is a lot larger, and a lot. I don't want to say more fruitful, but the area is a lot. No disrespect to New Mexico, but as if the area is not as fruitful as Louisiana Purchase. You know, we can also make this argument that when we acquired a lot of this land, another issue will be raised up. And when I say another issue, what I should have said was the issue will come right back up. That fatal issue will come back up. And that fatal issue is the issue of slavery. Ralph Waldo Emerson will argue that it will be as a man who had swallowed arsenic. Mexico has now poisoned us. The things that you think are helping you may actually be hurting you. And that's exactly the case with the acquisition of that Mexican cession. We now have another issue or I should say, another opportunity to discuss old issues in a new area. And that old issue is the institution of slavery. The new area is the Mexican cession.